Welcome back to the Capes and Tights podcast right here on capesandtights.com. I'm your host, Justin Soderberg. This episode is brought to you once again by our friends at Galactic Comics and Collectibles over at galacticcomicsandcollectibles.com. This episode sees the return of Jay Martin, cartoonist and storyboard artist. Jay is here to talk about his comic book Yellow, a graphic novel coming out from Dark Horse Comics on December 17th in bookstores and December 18th in comic book stores. We also touched a little bit on Lost Boy, his book that came out last year, which was absolutely wonderful and considered one of our comic books of the year. Jay also has storyboarded in Hollywood for movies such as The Amazing Spider-Man 2, Constantine, I Am Legend, Ad Astra, The Hunger Games, Catching Fire, as well as the upcoming Spider-Man noir TV show from the Sony Spider-Man universe over at Sony. This episode is phenomenal. I love talking to Jay. And so, check out this episode with Jay Martin, cartoonist and storyboard artist, right here on capesandtights.com. Enjoy, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast, Jay. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you, Justin. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful here. We got the Christmas tree set up because, it's right around Christmas time. I mean, this episode will drop in the Christmas season. We are recording this prior to Thanksgiving, but still, it's the season, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think people are playing Christmas carols this week. I hear them start to trickle in.
I'm like, it's one of those things that someone asked me, the other day was like, oh, we watched Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. What other Thanksgiving movies are there? And I'm like, I don't know, man. I really couldn't tell you. Like, I think that's about it. I don't honestly, unless it's like some pseudo Thanksgiving by Eli Roth that came out last year, or the year before.
That's...
But like as a family movie, a movie that you'd sit down with your family and watch is probably not one of those ones, unless you have some sort of serial killer family, which is possible too. But
yeah, I don't know. I think they're all it's like Christmas is dominating the holiday movies.
And that's why I feel like it's okay to jump into the Christmas season a little early, because, there's not much to really watch. Oh, there's a Black Friday movie I watched a couple of years ago, which is really bad, but there's that.
It's about shopping?
Yeah, it's a horror comedy. And
okay.
Yeah, it's like the people go crazy after a meteor crashes to Earth and like a parasite takes over. But it's got there's some funny moments about storming a store on Black Friday, as well as people just thinking they're crazy because they're crazy shoppers on Black Friday, but really they're possessed by an alien parasite.
I like it. I'll check it out. It's like a Shaun of the Dead kind of movie.
But here, let's be honest. Shaun of the Dead is on an entirely different level, though, Jay. Like, this is not even close to Shaun of the Dead. Shaun of the Dead is a classic.
They were aiming for Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah. They were aiming, but they didn't have the actors or the budget or the backing. Okay, so. But I mean, outside of it being Christmas season, holiday season, and so on and so forth, how have you been? I mean, you were on about a year ago, a little around there. We were talking Lost Boy. How has Lost Boy been going for you for the past year?
It's been wild. It's been so I did Lost Boy, and then I kind of was able to meet all these different comics people and just start to get involved in making more comics. So I did the book Yellow, which comes out December 17th.
Mm-hmm.
And I started pitching a lot of ideas and sort of meeting other people. And I'm doing a book called The Venetian with Giancarlo Esposito. That's happening. That's probably going to come out next year.
Mm-hmm.
And the writer on that is this guy named Matt Wheeler, who's amazing. And just developing some projects with interesting people. But yeah, it's been like a whole world of comics.
Yes. Oh, that's great. I mean, it's one of those things that sometimes it just, obviously you have a history in illustration and comics and comic strips and things like that. If people have listened to the previous episode, we talked about that. But getting a graphic novel or comic book out there in the current day and age and getting people to see it, eyes on it, and do well, does open up doors in conversations with other people. Like we mentioned before we started recording, you also had that story in Headless Horseman Annual, A Little Rabbit.
Yeah.
which was phenomenal. And so that came out obviously not too long ago. And then you have a book coming out in January on Dark Horse too, right? Behemoth.
Oh yeah, I've got it. This is too many books. I forgot even about I don't know. Behemoth's coming out. Behemoth is amazing. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was yeah, that one comes out next year, and
Yeah.
that is a great story. That when they that is Grant Spatore was the sort of idea generator behind that one, and Dark Horse basically brought it to me. They're like, "Would you be interested in doing this?" And the pitch was so good. I was like, "Yes!" Like like the one sentence into it, I was like, "Yes, I'll. That sounds awesome." Like I'm 100% in.
I think it's
Um,
cool because they're really mostly from what the movie and film and TV industry, the writers,
yeah,
and so bringing that to comics is so much fun to see that.
yeah. Well, it was cool because Ryan Engel is the writer. Grant was the director, and so the
Yeah.
idea, the genesis of it, and they brought me in. And what I did is because none of these guys had done comics before, but I had done comics,
Mhm.
and they had never written a comic script before. So I was like, I think there's a way we can do this where we just make the book and we don't
Mhm.
have a script and we just hang out. And so we set it up where we all met at my wife's office. She has a great little office in Studio City. And Grant was in for a week from Australia, and Ryan lives there. And so we just used the space and we spent about a week and we just sat around and just kind of, they told me the story and I would take each scene and sketch it right in front of them, like do like a blue line pencil and be like, okay, here's the first page, here's the side, and we just put the book together, and we got through it. I think it was about a yeah, it was about a week of just hanging out and just every day, like just another, got through it ended up being like over 100 pages of material, but it was an interesting experience because there was definitely like a learning curve. For
Mhm.
me, it's like I'm used to doing my own stuff where it's just like I'll do it. I kind of have a process where I do things and then I almost to the finished point, and then I'll look at it and revise it and change it and keep noodling with it, which is probably not a streamlined process. So with them, it was like it was me getting adjusting to like, okay, they're gonna give me notes, I'm gonna give it back. And but it's funny because like I think like the first issue went back and forth, like there was like six versions of it before it was like the book. And then by the third book, I think there was two versions, and then that was the book. So it was like we definitely got better at working together, and it ended up being like for me, it was a great experience, and I'm excited to like do it more. It's kind of what I did on Venetian as well.
I mean, your background we're here to talk a little bit more about Yellow, but let's just focus on this for a second. The background as a storyboard artist, does that really also help in that situation when you're in that one room where you're trying to like almost storyboarding with them?
It's just like it. It's the same thing. It's like, I mean, with the storyboarding, it's that's so different. But the idea of drawing right in front of people is something I'm very comfortable with. So that was like, I know I can like get like a really quick sketch that kind of tells the story of what's happening in the panel or the page quickly and show it to people. They can be like, okay, yeah, that's it. Okay, let's keep moving. So yeah, it was definitely using the storyboard toolbox and applying it to comics.
It's pretty funny also how like the world of comics nowadays, it's like there's so many creators who've never even met, let alone talked on the phone with the creator they're working with. A lot of it's email, text, things like that, through the publisher or so on and so forth. To have the creators all in one room just seems so asinine in the same sense. Like it seems so like out of the norm, but it also seems like one of the coolest ways to do it too. It seemed like you guys also just had fun making comics, which is how it should be, right? I mean, like
Yeah, I mean, it was we'd like just we would just like get through it. It
yeah.
was like I mean, they had the whole story, they had the whole outline, they had, a lot of material. So it was like, it was actually it was really fun. They had done all the hard work before they got to
Yeah.
me. So then it was like, how do you make this fun and cool and the sort
That
of process?
that's awesome. The comic comes out. I think issue one comes out January 15th at Dark Horse. As of right now, as we know, the publishing world, things change and move around, as we saw with Yellow and the release date for this. But the book is single issues, which is also slightly different. You mentioned the book you're also doing also, but like that your two books, Lost Boy and Graphic and Yellow, are both graphic novels. So this is single issue, but it seems like they're already done, right? Like they're basically done.
Oh yeah, we treated it like one
Okay.
big story arc. So for me, it was like it felt the same as it was. And also when I did Yellow, I did that in just working with my editor, Megan Walker at Dark Horse. We did it in pieces because it's a pretty big book. So it was like we did it in 4 installments basically. So I'm used to like breaking things
Mhm.
down into chapters. So yeah, it was the same process.
It was one of those funny things too, because like Lost Boy is a free, not a fast story, but it has a pace to it, a brisk pace to it, where you can get through it in pretty much one sitting. Yellow, I picked it up and was reading the digital copy. I was like, wow, this is a little longer than Lost Boy. There's a little bit more meat on the bones here too. Like I said, I loved Lost Boy. Lost Boy was one of my favorite books of last year, and not just because you're on here talking about this, but it actually was in our discussion of comics of the year top 10 thing with my local comic book shop. And so I was absolutely, the second I heard that the Yellow was coming in 2023, I was like, put it on the calendar, like, okay, got to get ready to read this, got to get ready to read. And then I sat down, I'm like, wow, this is going to take a little more of my time investment than I thought it was going to.
Well, when I did Lost Boy, I got a lot of comments that it was a little short, like, not enough, not enough value. And so when I did Yellow, I was like, well, this story is like, there's more to tell here. So I was like, I'll make a
Can't
bigger
make
book.
anybody happy.
Yeah, get your
It's too long now. No, I was
money's
kidding.
worth.
It's worth it. The journey was amazing to go on, but like, yeah, it was kind of funny. I'm like, you kind of like plan out your time, and I'm trying to figure out. I read a lot of times before I go to bed, so it's like, before you either fall asleep or lose the mental capacity to understand what you're reading at some point. And so you're trying to plan out things. And I have young kids, so it's like trying to figure out around their bedtimes and all that stuff. And a lot of times I'll read. My son will go to bed and he'll have me read to him or be next to him in his room. He'll fall asleep. But if I get up the second he falls asleep, Jay, I like he wakes back up and goes, "Where are you going?" Like, you were in a deep sleep there. What the hell just
I
happened?
know.
And so
I know it. I know
for the
those
past
days.
couple months or so, or 6 months or so, I've just been sitting next to him for like a half an hour, and just making sure that he's asleep, and I'll just have my iPad and reading. And so when I was like trying to budget time for different things, I was kind of like expecting the length of Lost Boy, and got that longer. But then I was like, oh, I have to live in this world for a little longer. Not that I really want to live in the world of Yellow. That seems like a little that seems a little torture in that sense. But so Lost Boy and Yellow are two graphic novels that you put out recently, or the second one coming out soon. They're different in a sense that they're different, completely different stories in that sense. Where did the story for Yellow come from? Where did that originate?
I think it was I like had this I just for some reason had this like idea about like a coward soldier trying to get out of a war. And I was like, this is so interesting. And I was doing like a lot of research about it. And I was just trying to like figure out like what would be like the setting. And then I just got like there was all this like chatter on the internet about like let's have a civil war and we're done. And I'm like, that seems like a really bad idea. Like, and I was reading this book, I think it was called How Things Fall Apart, kind of about like how civilizations crumble and like how that all so it was about research. And then the catalyzing factor was, and all this time I'm sort of outlining and sketching and trying to like get to the story and if it's worth doing. And I read this book, Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy. Have you ever
Mhm.
read that?
I've not read that, but I've read other Cormac McCarthy's, and I've heard of it. So yeah.
So it is like, I would call it like an apocalyptic Western because it's about the West, but it's at a time where like there's not really society yet. It's like in between the sort of Native Americans being like devastated, and it's like before the sort of American culture and society sort of comes to be.
Mm.
So it's like this lawless, chaotic, terrible vision of like what the West probably was really like. And it was like that that's what would happen. That's what the Civil War would be. It would be like horrible, lawless. And so then I just started like just doing more research and developing it. And I kind of was like, yeah, this is the story I want to tell.
It's funny too because I when you see the cover before even reading the solicitations or anything like that, I'm like I'm not a huge like World War II or like the buff in that sense. Like I know it's history, I know about it and so on and so forth, but I'm not like clamoring to watch war-based movies. However, I am a big dystopian, post-apocalyptic, unique style stories like that. And so like where this blends the two of those together. I'm also a big Walking Dead fan, and so I felt like this, like The Walking Dead was a war between people and zombies, but then it became more of a war against people in the United States against each other. And obviously, this is a little bit different in that sense. But then I'm like, well, that fits in that slot for me that I can actually grab onto and read it and so on and so forth. And I did get that. I felt like that. I don't know, a unique war story that I actually could sink my teeth into. But yeah, that cover with the helmet on and the gun and stuff like that, I immediately was like, oh, this is a World War II. Like, this is not going to be what I wanted to be reading. And then I'm like, nah. But here's the deal: I also fall in love with creators, and so sometimes I'll just read whatever. So I was in it no matter what, Jay. Like there was no question about it.
I
But
appreciate you
but I
getting
was just
past that.
but I was thinking to myself, I'm like, and it turned out to be, like I said, it blended a bunch of things together. And I think that was what's cool about it. I also feel like there's nothing against creative teams like you're going to be working on, or we worked on with Behemoth and having writers, so on and so forth, like a staff of people almost doing these comics together. But there's something to be said where it's like you and Frank, and that's it. And I think that to me is like a huge thing to me that you can actually tell the artists also telling the story so that it goes together hand in hand. Like I said, we've talked about it in the past, I think, and I've talked with other cartoonists in the past who do both duties, is that there's positives, obviously, and negatives, because the positives are that you get to work on your own time, you figure it all out, you can edit things along the way. The downside is you don't have the other person to bad ideas against. Like they're like, hey, what if we do this? Do you find it fun, exciting, stressful to do it all yourself?
I mean, I like doing it all myself because it's like it's very immersive. It's like you're just in this world. It doesn't feel like a job. It feels like a challenge. It
Mm,
feels like it feels like you're sort of you're you're just trying to make something really cool and make something interesting and tell the story in an interesting way. And yeah, it's more of a challenge, but I feel like I do like, there is like Megan Walker at
mm,
Dark Horse is looking at everything and going over the chapters and making sure that it's like cohesive and the story's there, and it's not like, there is that collaboration. But there's not like a day-to-day partner
mm,
like with like with Behemoth, where it's like we are like sitting there doing every page and looking at it and going, okay, yeah, that works.
mm. And it's just sometimes I feel like there's actually one of my friend creators, Joseph Schmalke, has talked about co-creating comic books with some people, and the secondary person, the person, he was the writer of the book, the artist, contributed so much to the overall story being told that he's actually still contemplating whether or not to just say it's co-written by him and the other artist, as well as illustrated by the artist, because there was so much input put in from this co-creator, that he just felt like it made sense to give them the writing credit as well, along with him, to make sure that they get the credit that's due. And so there is this camaraderie and this collaboration between artist and writer. But again, like I said, I don't know. For me personally, I'm so particular that if I did my own comic, I'd want to do it all myself, because I'm just like, okay, I just know how this is supposed to look. I'm just gonna do it the way I want to do it, and I'm controlling in that sense. That's probably also a downside. But yeah, I'd want to do it all myself as well.
I mean, there is that. I mean, that's undeniable. Like it
Yeah,
is, it's like, but it's like, then you're second guessing. You're like, was that the right choice? You're
yeah.
like, okay, okay, I gotta do it. You gotta just move forward. There
And
is
if
like,
If it fails, you have no one to blame it on. Just kidding.
Yeah, you can't be like, I don't know, man. That writer
I,
really
I
dropped the
have a good
ball.
time. Yeah.
But I feel like it is like that is like the fun of the collaboration process because it does like remove a little bit of the writing and doing it on your own. There is like I feel it like it's like a mountain of self-doubt that's like sliding down on you
Mhm.
at all times. And as a writer, you're trying to like escape it, and the avalanche is like moving, and you're like, get me away from this. And it's like it's so hard. It's like it's that's the thing. It's like and it's funny because it starts out it's not there. When you get the
Mhm.
idea and you're doing like the first part of it and you're laying it out, you're like you feel unstoppable. But then it's this thing starts going and then you're just trying to outrun it. I mean,
Yeah.
definitely with Yellow, which is like a bigger book, I really felt it like getting through it. I was like, oh God, what have I done? This is like, what am I doing? It's like there is that. It's like, and reading about other writers helps because I think a lot of writers talk about that feeling, and it's sort of it that helps. It's like just reading other writers talking about their process. Um, that's a thing, and you just got to keep running.
After going through these two graphic novels and doing this, and now you're obviously doing some single issue stuff, but like, is there a choice if you ever had to make the choice, would there be one or the other? I mean, do you enjoy, not to say enjoy more, but like, do you find it more of at home illustrating more than writing, or?
I mean, I like them both. I don't really discern. I mean, writing is like the drawing, the illustrating, and the coloring is like really fun, and I enjoy it and I love it, but it is so time consuming. It
Mm,
is like, I mean, it takes months for these books to get made. Like it's months of work. And it's like when I'm doing these books, when I was doing, I think I was doing Behemoth and Yellow at the same time. I was getting up at like 5:30 in the morning and I would just start the process, start the drawing before the sun came up, and I'd be drawing, all day long
mhm.
until I had to stop. And I would stop knowing that there was like a mountain of work still to do, like every single day. And it was like
Yeah,
it was a lot, but writing it, you could write a comic book script in a couple weeks.
yeah. Well, I think that's what a lot of people have asked that question to a lot of your cartoonist style people who do both and that have shifted more into the writing than they have the illustrating is it's not that they don't want to do either one. It's because they have a mountain of stories that they really, 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 really want to tell. And that if they did the illustrations for all of them, wrote and illustrated everything, that not half of them would go untold. And so, like, some of them are like, I just like the idea. And the same, I think, goes for the writers out there who have other people writing their story. And so, like, James Tynion the fourth is one of them I can think about. It's like he has Some Killing the Children, he has House of Slaughter. But House of Slaughter, he doesn't write. He has someone else writing that story, even though it's based on his idea. Same thing with The Oddly Pedestrian Life of Christopher Chaos. Tate Brombal is writing that story, even though it's based on an idea that came from James Tynion the fourth. And so, like, the idea he has is that I can't write every story because I just don't have the time to write every story. But I want these stories to be out there in the ether. I want people to see that. I want them to enjoy it. And so by having the ability to just write, I can understand that. But yes, I mean, at heart, you're a storyteller, if that makes any sense. So like whether you're writing it in Illustrator or just Illustrator, you're still telling a story.
I agree. Yeah. Yeah, I can
The
see.
Yeah, I mean, do you feel like this story Yellow was important to tell her at this point? Is it scary to tell at this point in the world we live in right now? Was it too real? Was it a reflection too much of what we're actually seeing?
I mean, I was sort of thinking about it like that. I mean, this book took a long time, and it's funny because there was the A24 Civil War movie,
Hmm. Hmm.
which came out, and I was watching the trailer, and I was like, oh God, this looks a lot like my book. And then someone wrote a review of my book, like from an advanced
Yeah.
copy, and they're like, if you like that A24 Civil War movie, you'll like this book because it's pretty much the same sort of
Same
stuff.
thing. No.
And I think it's just in the zeitgeist right now. I
Yes, it
just
is.
like
Yeah.
people are thinking about this and imagining like what is that like? And my storyline is I went the A24 movie, I really enjoyed it. It's like it is a similar, very similar world and different stories though.
Yes, different story. Yes, you're right. They are their own thing. But yeah, you're right. In the zeitgeist, it's also these are fictional. So like there is this bleed in from current societal things, but like they're fictional stories. These are not based on true stories. And so, do you find so this kind of story being so, I say realistic, but like so could be real fun to write, or is it like I'm trying to think of like how writing a book about a superhero is completely
Right.
utterly 100% fictional, never could be real, so on and so forth. This could be something where like 15 years from now, like, oh, J. Martin produced or predicted the future. Like, I don't know,
That
it's
would be
does that stress you out
I
at
hope
all?
people I hope people read this book and say like,
Oh
oh
yeah,
yeah,
we
that
should,
would be
yeah.
horrible. Like what the hell what the hell am I thinking? Like this would not be great
Yeah.
for anyone. For it's yeah, I mean that was I really enjoyed it because I really
Okay.
it's one of those things where once you dig into like an
Hmm.
idea of like what could happen and like I don't know if I want to how much to give away, but like there's a plot point of in this story about sort of people taking advantage of other people who are like defenseless in this
Hmm.
world and sort of using the scenario like society comes falling down and the sort of more opportunistic and people who with sort of sociopaths
Hmm.
are like really taking advantage of it and thinking of how they would do that and how horrible that would be was sort of like I don't want to say fun, but like it was really interesting to dig into and to like explore that and see how would they do that and how would
Hmm.
people get out of those situations and how is like how could anyone stop that? And it's like becomes you realize like yeah, without the society around us, like it's a scary place. The world could be really, really scary really quick.
Yes, I think that's one of the reasons I was saying about the whole Walking Dead comparison in my book. I said there's no zombies in this, people. Like this is not a zombie apocalypse kind of story. But the idea that when society collapses, those people who maybe weren't thriving before found a way to thrive in this in a way by controlling or being horrible human beings in that sense. They've always been a horrible human being, but they've been able to be this like this exaggerated, crazy worst part of themselves because of it. But I think there's also the opposite of that too, where people have second chances and so not based. This is not based solely on the book Yellow, but just in general about this type of story is that there's opportunities for people who were like maybe prisoners who got out of jail and now are like helping the homeless and helping the people with misfortunate people and those kind of things. And so society's collapses aren't always bad, but they're bad. like it's bad in general. Yes, you're right. But it's how people react, and I think that's one of those things that I've always told people about certain stories, whether it be a zombie story or so on and so forth. A lot of these are just vessels to tell another story, and I think that like the idea that it's about the people on Walking Dead, not about the zombies. You know what I mean? How you react when someone tries to take your family or shoot your family or things like that. But I think those things fall in this exact same situation in this, where there's like, how do you follow, how do you protect yourself? How do you protect your family? Especially Nick's this main character, Nick's traveling too, from place to place. This is not you just trying to hold back and like, keep my house safe during this fall of society. Like this is there he's going from place to place too.
Yeah, he's trying to get out of the
Mhm.
war. He's like, get me out of here. And he's ill prepared and he's like, I mean, I feel like I'm a coward at heart. And so that character was like
Yes.
really like I would be the worst person prepared for any kind of thing like that.
Yeah.
So I
I'm the
was
same way. I'd be like, where do I hide? Is there a place for me to hide right now? And hopefully this blows over at some point and I can escape. But like, I'm the same way.
Yeah, I think I was like, this character is like, it's like a version of the Lost Boy character who's
It's
like the least equipped to handle the situation. Um, so his yeah, it was fun to like put that person into that story because it's like, I mean, Walking Dead does it really well because they have many, many characters, so you can have
Mhm.
the leader and the tough guys and also these kind of guys. But this was a book where it's like, okay, let's just take like one of
Yep.
those
Yep.
scared, like sort of, you know, cowardly, and try to give this person a redemption arc in a way that like would make sense to that person.
He also only it kind of reminds me that I was reading the beginning, like the way he looks and the way his character he is like if Steve Rogers didn't get the super serum, like this is like the body type and like the just this puny little guy like trying to act like he's tough or something like that, and then really being like, I don't, this is crazy. Because I also feel like you mentioned the whole like being a coward. I feel like 90% of the people who are like, I just defend my house if the society collapsed and I'd go to war for would not. I think it's all talk. I think most of them wouldn't actually sit there and do it. However, we did see January 6th a couple of years ago that people did actually the talk wasn't just talk at that point. But yeah, no, I think most people would be cowards, and I think that's okay because I feel like the less people fighting, the better off I'd be if people weren't fighting around me. I want everybody around me. Let's just hunker down during the fall of society. How about that? Sound good? I mean, you look like you're in a nice place there to hunker down in right there. I don't know. Looks
Yeah,
nice.
this is New Mexico.
So there you go. I'm just gonna come out and see you, Jay. Okay, how about that? But the problem
Come
is
on
that
down here.
I'd have to be Nick, and I'd have to travel across the country to get to
Yeah,
you.
you
So that's like
would.
that wouldn't work. I'd end up living out the story of this graphic novel. No, but it's to me you have this way, and I don't know if I'm the only one that sees it, or I'm sure there is, but the way of telling stories like Lost Boy and this have some similarities in that you have a certain way of telling stories. It got a little like DNA in there of you, and it's probably the artwork mixed with the story, in my opinion. Standing with honestly with Little Rabbit, and I'm hoping that translates over to a story that you're not fully writing like Behemoth, but they're I hate to say they're fun because they're not there's a seriousness to them, but they're an entertainment and they're enjoyable, and I think that's what's fun about these two books, Yellow and Lost Boy. And like I said, if anybody knows this podcast, Lost Boy was up there for one of my favorite books of last year, so I'm hoping that as people start to read, it won't Yellow won't be in contention this year. It's too at least too late in the year. It can't be like you gotta like we too
I missed award season
Yes,
for
you missed award
the
season.
for the
However, December 17th and 18th, 17th at bookstores and 18th at comic book shops is not too late for a Christmas present, though. You notice that, right? There's nice, right in that sweet spot where people are buying Christmas presents. So if you have a person out there who's into, alternate realities in a sense of a civil war based in the United States and a second civil war where fall society is going on and a person's using their, basic instinct to try to rise above or stay below, to cower or to fight. Choose between good and evil. This book right here, Yellow, is worth checking out because I think in a world where people maybe aren't, if you're a friend or a family that's not solely into comics, a nice long graphic novel might be the perfect gift because it's all there. You don't have to worry about going back to the shop and getting issue 2 or 3 or 4. It's all right in front of you.
Thank you, man. That's
Yes. It's a great story. Like I said, I don't want to spoil it. And that's the problem with trying to do these things and discuss this with creators, on a podcast ahead of release is because I like to promote the book. So like the idea of getting it out there so people know about it, but then also like spoiling it. It's like I don't want to spoil anything for anybody. I want all to be surprised. And I think we gave just enough away. But you have this book comes out December 17th and 18th. You have Lost Way available right now. You've got Behemoth coming in January, but you're also working on storyboarding still. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm doing the storyboards on a TV show right now, called Spider Noir. When it's the character from the Spider-Verse movies
Mm-hmm.
and from like the Marvel graphic novels, the Spider-Man Noir.
Mm-hmm.
So it's Nicolas Cage starring as Spider-Man in this alternate 1930s universe. But I can't give much away about it.
No,
It's
no.
it's awesome.
It sounds like it sounds like a fun experience. I mean, well, the funny thing is to me too. I don't know anybody. I just realized that the other day the only other TV show that Nicolas Cage has done, and this is one of those weird hybrid things because streaming is it a TV show? Is it not a TV show kind of thing? But the only other TV he did this the History of Swear Words TV show on History Channel, I think it was.
Oh,
Or
really?
yeah, yeah, but he doesn't do TV shows, and that's where I thought it was like he really wanted to play this character. This was pretty cool, but obviously you don't have no insight into that. But I'm saying like it's so cool that he really wanted to continue playing Spider-Man Noir, which he voiced for people who don't know in the animated movies, like you mentioned. But he's never really been in TV shows. He's like, I'm a film actor. I play film characters. I don't need to do TV shows, and so there's obviously more money in films than there is in TV shows, but they're in short TV shows. I mean, if you're a long-term TV show host or player, you can make some money. But yeah, it's really cool to see that he must love playing Spider-Man Noir so much that he's willing to do this streaming show for the Sony Spider-Man universe, which is pretty badass in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's going to be amazing. I can't wait to
Yeah.
see what people think of it because it's just a crazy, it's just a wild concept. I mean, you know the concept, you know
Yeah. Yeah.
what the vibe is. It's
So,
awesome.
so is this something that you've done, you did, or are you currently like they still contacting you and say, hey, we need some storyboards for this TV show we're doing, or is this something that you're like you've done the storyboarding and now it's over?
No, it's they're shooting
Okay,
it now. So I like literally this afternoon I'm going to be meeting with the directors and doing some more scenes.
that's crazy. Uh, that's a different. So that's kind of funny. I mean, are there very many comic creators out there that are also doing stuff like this? I mean, is this? It seems like a cool blend of worlds for you.
I mean, I came from story when this was always
Yes.
it was something I've always done and it's something I really enjoy doing because it's kind of blending both like the film and the drawing together.
Mhm.
And it's fun to do like cool projects and see it come to life.
Is storyboarding, is that something nowadays? I mean, with the technology, are you doing it digitally? Are you doing on physical paper? Like
I
what's the
do it, I mean, I do it the same way I do the comics.
okay,
I I draw on a Cintiq, which is like
okay,
the one of those big tablets. But
yep.
I'll sketch everything out on pencil, on paper, and then I'll do the like inks and color, the shading on the Cintiq. But I mean, with the storyboarding, yeah, that's it's basically the same technique.
Okay.
Were you going
Do
to talk about like the AI of
no,
things
no,
like
no,
that?
no. I don't want to.
Because
I don't
I
like
think
touching the
people are
words
worried.
AI.
Well, no, a lot of people in this business are worried about that. And I think it's like, I don't know. I don't think it's gonna take the place of like what
Yeah.
storyboarding is like you could say like it's I think it's less about like making these frames
Mhm.
than it is like being able to have a conversation about what you might do in a scene. Like if you're a director, it's like being able to see stuff when there's no stakes. Like,
Mhm.
what is a wide angle? Let's do this. Or would a close up be good here? And you can like, as a director, working with storyboard artists is like a little playground where you can safely, without being judged, without the actors and the producers and anyone saying like, is that what you're gonna do? It's like you can see all these options and play with it and kind of like in real time just like see all these things and be able to
Mhm.
talk to the storyboard artist and it's I think it's like a it's a session. It's
Mhm.
like a therapy session for coming up with a scene. So I don't know that it's like I don't know. I don't know if that aspect of it is easily replaced.
Yeah, I don't. And there's a human element. I mean, there's a human element to everything because not only are they're telling you something, but you have to then decipher what they're saying to you and then draw it. And so, like, I feel like when people even mess around with doing AI stuff on the internet, just like, oh, it's just because like a lot of the fringe people who are not trying to use it to their advantage just want to screw with it. You know what I mean? They just want to be like, oh, this is crazy. A computer could do this, and not, and they're innocent to the fact that they don't know the history and the implications behind what AI can do, and so on and so forth. And so they're still relying on a computer to spit out something. from potentially pre-manufactured ideas. And so like you having to be able to just be like, I want Spider-Man to be doing this, so and so forth. You can then take it and go, okay, his arm goes this way, or and like you're still using your human brain and getting what they expected you to see, or what they maybe didn't even know they wanted to see on a storyboard.
I think it's also like the level of specificity you can
Yeah.
get with a human component is like it's like you can get exactly what you want. You can say
Yeah.
no, this like this. So you don't have to like. I think it's just at this point, I think humans are faster
Yes.
getting
And you don't get
to
a random finger on the top of the head or something like that too. Like,
right. You don't.
why does Spider-Man have 6 arms? I mean, I mean, so you storyboarded for the Amazing Spider-Man 2 as well. So like, is this just another, like, how did you get this job? I mean, I know that's weird to say, but like, I mean, was it just because you worked on
I
Spider-Man before, or?
so a very close friend of mine is the showrunner, and
Okay.
I've known him for a long time. And when I heard he was getting the job, I was like, oh my God, please put my hat in the ring. And so he let me like interview with the director of the pilot,
Mhm.
and we like hit it off on Zoom, and so I got the job.
See, there you go. See?
But I
But see,
do, I mean, I've done a lot. I'm
yeah,
not
yeah,
like it wasn't like I've done a lot of storyboards,
yes.
a lot of stuff.
But what's kind of funny is I always like when people are like talking about future upcoming guests and things that are on the podcast, and there's things you can say, like I could say, "Oh, Lost Boy, great, 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 great graphic novel. You really should read it." He's got another one coming up called Yellow, which is phenomenal. Or I can talk about Behemoth and say new single issue comic coming out in January, so on and so forth. But they're all like, "Cool," and then I'm like, "Well, he's doing storyboards for Spider-Man." And he's like, "Oh, yeah, that's awesome." And then I go, and then the one I hang my hat on the most is that, oh, he directed the Hey There Delilah music video. And they're always like, "Oh yeah, I can connect to that one." And I'm like, "See, look at that! Like it's one of those weird things that's like I don't know. I mean, obviously it's Shawn Mendes and all those other artists you've worked with too, but I just think it's kind of funny to me. It's the Hey There Delilah music video that just always sticks with me. I don't know why. I mean,
I
I don't know.
mean, it's a classic.
It is, but I just think it's kind of funny because it's also from like what 20 years ago now.
Yeah, right. I bet it was 20 years ago.
Yeah, I'm actually looking at it right here, 2006.
Wow.
2006 it came out for that song, but yeah, it's just kind of funny. And I also we talked about it last time you were on too, about like how like people, I don't think that many people out there realize that someone's directing these music videos. They just happen for some reason. It's like letterers in my opinion, where people just think those letters just appear on the comic book page. They don't realize that there's an
Yeah.
actual person doing that. And so the same thing with music videos. I think they're so focused on the music or the hot girls in the music video that they don't realize that someone's actually there directing the film as well. It's a film. It's still a film. Um, but yeah, that was kind of cool. And I think, like I said, your illustration background allows you to do some multiple things. And I think for me personally, it would invigorate my mind a little bit to be able to like do comics, do graphic novels, to do storyboarding, those kind of things. Because you're I think you're flexing similar muscles but separate muscles, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. I mean, the storyboarding is like it's more like it's someone else's driving, so it's
Hmm.
a little bit like less stressful. It's more like, oh, this is fun. Like, let's go. And then the comics is like also the comics you got to draw a lot like storyboards
It's
is
more of a
like,
fit. It's a polished, finished product. That's not
yeah,
your
the
problem. That's the
storyboards can
that's the
be
creator.
like
Yeah, yeah.
really like loose and kind of like that's part of the fun of it is like, just sort of making something quick and just it tells tells what happens in the frame, but you don't have to like, if it's a little, sloppy or quick or sketchy, that actually I think is better in a
Hmm.
storyboard. It's like it feels less like, I don't know, nailed down. Makes
Do
everyone feel
you
more comfortable.
do you watch the like go to watch the series or any of the movies you've done in the past or shows you've done in the past and you storyboard? Or do you go and all of a sudden I know where you're like, wait, I drew that. Like, do you ever like? Is there ever like a moment where you're like, now I get to see it in real life what my
Yeah,
storyboard potentially looked
I
at?
like it's always like I love looking at movies like movies that I've storyboarded like I don't know like I'll watch like I'm Legend or
Yeah.
Constantine or something like movies that like I'm and I'll be like, oh yeah, like I'll remember like the whole thing. Like I'll remember when I drew the frame or when the director was talking about it and like it's really not, it's like a warm feeling, I think, to watch those for me and think about like, or The Greatest Showman or something
Yeah.
like that. It was weird. My kid was doing a recital. My daughter is like
Yeah.
12, and they were singing one of the songs from Greatest Showman. And it was funny because like I just remembered drawing all the pictures for the scene where they sang that song. And I wasn't even thinking of the movie. I was like
Yeah.
thinking of drawing the pictures of the scene when I was watching her sing. So
I thought you were
it's
gonna say that you storyboarded their performance for them, so they would have an idea of
you
it.
better stand right there. And you're
Hold
gonna
on
go
a
right
second.
there.
Let's see if you're in frame. And she's like, Dad, you're taking it way too seriously. Okay, this is not. But no, that's pretty funny. I can see that because like you mentioned, like a finished product, you get to see the finished product of a book you've illustrated before anybody else, right? Because obviously you're finishing everything art wise. I mean, because obviously lettering is a lettering pass and so on and so forth. But like when you finish a drawing for a page or a panel, it's like you're the first person to actually see that completed. If you're doing a storyboard, you don't get to see the completed product until basically everybody else does, or at least close to what everybody else does. Someone else has to shoot that and act that and so on and so forth. So it's kind of cool. Like you put effort into it, but you actually get to see the finished product until later. That's not even your finished product. It's just you helped facilitate that finished product, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I mean,
Pretty cool.
sometimes I'm on set for the
Mhm.
project, so I'll see it being shot, which is fun. Um, but yeah, I won't see it until it's
On wherever. Yeah, it's a cool. I don't know. It's like you're one of those. It's like the people who cut trailers. I'm always like fascinated with like their job because I'm first of all I'm always like, how the hell did you get that job? Like that's such a cool job in my opinion. Because because a lot of faith goes into that, like that person. Like a finished cut of a movie is one thing, but like getting someone to it's the first time all of us as viewers and consumers judge a movie. Do you know what I mean? Like it's the first time we all look at a thing and you see the Spider-Man Noir trailer and we're always like, oh, that's gonna stink or that's gonna be awesome or like whatever it may be. We judge immediately. And so those trailers I feel like sometimes are hard for people to get right. And so it's like these weird there's jobs for there's so many various people. And I think not until you actually talk to someone where like someone's actually a storyboard artist, there's actually someone who sits behind a tablet and draws these things out. It's pretty badass in my opinion.
Oh, that's very sweet. Yeah, the
But
storyboard artists, the unsung heroes of pre-production.
yes, it's true. But there's also one of those things that like just like comics, down to the people who were sending files to the printer to get printed. There are so many people that you don't know about that go into the creation of things, including editors, like you mentioned, Megan, as an editor. Sometimes people it just goes over the head. It's a finished product. They read it. They don't even care that you wrote it, Jay, or illustrated it. They just want to read the product, and that's the thing. And so there's a lot of unsung heroes, I think, in the art world.
Yeah,
And
I
one of those is
definitely think the letterers, I
mhm.
don't think people realize, like if they saw the books with the temp lettering versus
Yeah,
with like Frank's lettering,
yeah,
like that is a huge thing for me. Like it's like that's when the book comes to life. Like it's not when I
yeah.
send it in, it's when I get it back with his letters on it, then it feels like a real book.
Is it now one of those things that you won't work on a book unless Frank's lettering it, or is that?
I mean, I can't imagine anyone doing it better. He's awesome. He's like he's super chill. He's always really not, I've had nothing but like
Yeah,
good times with him. Knock on wood.
I
He's
mean he's
great.
freaking busy right now too. So there's that too, though. So like it's one of those things like squeezing your book into a time that Frank has time to actually letter a book also matters nowadays. It's when you get this talented letterer. Like I said, it's an extension of the writing. It's an extension of the artist in that sense too, because you've got to letter the words the script is being written, and then also letter around your panels and so on and so forth. It is an unsung talent. But yeah, it's a crazy world you live right now. I think it's fun, and I think that you're continuing to excel, in my opinion, in the comic creation and the graphic novel creation. And I'm excited to see what you do next for storyboarding as well. Um, you can get Lost Boy right now. People can go buy it right now. Go buy Lost Boy, right? I mean, that's the number one thing in my opinion. I got a copy right here of Lost Boy.
Did
Yellow
they give
comes
you a
out.
hard copy of Yellow?
No, no,
They
but
didn't?
no, they don't think of me like that. No, I'm kidding. Caitlin's amazing over at Dark Horse.
Here's,
They haven't. Look at that.
I've got a hard copy. They gave
Look
me
at
a couple.
that. Look at that. It's done. It's ready to go. It's ready to be in your hands. It's like twice as thick as Lost Boy. So, someone tries to break into your house, you can defend your house off with it.
Yeah, with the yellow. Throw the yellow at them.
But no, that's available December 17th at your local bookstore. And that's a big thing to me, in my opinion. And that's one of the things I'll always hammer home to those people who potentially don't even know where their local comic book store is. If you're thinking about getting this kind of thing for your friend, family, whatever, for Christmas, go to your local bookstore because they can get it. It's part of the book market as well. But also local comic book shops will get it the 18th. So December 17th at bookstores, 18th at comic book shops. The way the publishing world works, new comics come out on Wednesday, new books come out on Tuesday. And so that's cool. It's available, readily available. And I recommend buying local. But if you don't have a local store, you can also go to bookshop.org. You can buy it through there, which helps support local bookstores. And then if you can't, my thing is just big emphasis on just buying the damn book. So go to Amazon if you have to buy the book, because that's just, the easiest way to get it is Amazon. That's fine to me, in my opinion. But yeah, I appreciate you coming on, taking the time out to discuss your stuff and so much more. We'll have you back on in the future. Does that sound good to you?
That sounds great. It was great chatting with you. Always fun. Always a pleasure.
Yes. And Happy New Year and all that stuff. And we'll talk in 2025 at some point. Sound good?
I love it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jay.
Have a great day.